I was just able to recover some of the redactions to Trump's Epstein files, and you won't believe what I just found. The Trump DOJ screwed up some of the redactions so bad that you can recover them. And I did so simply by copying and pasting the text. When I did, this is what was there. This is 100% proof that Trump tried to cover up the existence of other participants in Epstein's crimes.
That's right. In unbelievable news, Trump's DOJ has revealed themselves to not just be shockingly corrupt, not just to be involved in one of the biggest scandals in American history, but also to be breathtakingly incompetent. In fact, I'm just now getting word over my ear that many people are saying they might be one of the most incompetent DOJs, possibly in history, possibly ever. I'm going to break down just how badly they fare with their cover-up, what it means to the administration, and at the end I'll show you some of the funniest internet reactions to this whole debacle, just to try and keep the world feeling slightly frothy as it implodes around us. So strap in, subscribe to Raw America, and make sure you pop a soft towel on the floor to catch your jaw, as it's going to be hitting the fucking thing quite a few times in the next few minutes.
We literally just figured out how to unredact some of the Epstein files that Trump's administration redacted. So the Trump administration is so incompetent that they use the improper formatting for redactions. Meaning that on some of the files, all you got to do is copy the text, including the redactions, and then paste it in a notepad. When pasted, the actual redacted text shows. Watch, I'm doing it again right here. So this turns to this. This is what happens when you hire a criminal as president.
That's right. Trump's DOJ are so incompetent they did the redacting equivalent of trying to hide a body by covering it with post-it notes. Like, if you give a toddler a crayon, they can redact files better than Trump's DOJ. In fact, give a toddler a crayon and enough time, and they can redact an entire wall. Now, this already hasn't been the best year of Donald Trump's life. In fact, life is a pretty generous term for a year of watching his festering corpse jerk itself awake in meetings.
Number two, it'll give patients and researchers access.
But the Epstein case is spiraling out of control. I mean, check out the shocking content that Trump's DOJ tried to hide.
I was just able to recover some of the redactions to Trump's Epstein files, and you won't believe what I just found. The Trump DOJ screwed up some of the redactions so bad that you can recover them. And I did so simply by copying and pasting the text.
Cut to somebody in Trump's DOJ being like, copying and pasting? My God, this man's a genius. I wonder if he works for the hacker group known as 4chan.
When I did, this is what was there. This is 100% proof that Trump tried to cover up the existence of other participants in Epstein's crimes. It says right here that they paid large sums of money to participant witnesses in order to keep them quiet, as well as their attorney's fees. This means that Trump tried to hide the fact that there's other participants and other attorneys who know about it, as well as those who helped Epstein release damaging stories and destroy evidence. This is the biggest cover-up in American history.
Yeah. Now, why would Trump's DOJ be trying to cover up the fact that Epstein and his creepy cohorts were paying money to witnesses to try and keep them quiet? Let's check what information they officially said they would redact. Look at this. So this is from a Guardian article about this whole fucking mess, and check out this little line. The Epstein Files Transparency Act, signed into law last month, permits the Department of Justice, or the DOJ, which I struggle to say for some reason, to withhold certain information such as the personal information of victims and materials that would jeopardize an active federal investigation. Interesting. Okay, so let's think about this. Is evidence about how Epstein and co. tried to cover up, his crimes, does that count as personal information of the victims? Not unless Trump's DOJ sees Epstein as a victim, which... Well, maybe if the secret purpose of the investigation is investigate how to keep Trump from getting buried by the Epstein files, then maybe, possibly, yeah. This isn't the only thing in the recent release that the DOJ tried and failed to cover up, by the way. I've got a few more unbelievable cover-up attempts to share, plus this is technically a breaking story, so I'm sure teams of dedicated nerds are sifting through it as we speak. And yes, I am allowed to say that because I might be a nerd, but I am absolutely not dedicated. Check out this tweet, which breaks down some of the insane developments of the past 24 hours very succinctly. So check this out, guys. A massive technical blunder has just exposed 11,000 unredacted documents from Volume 8 of the Epstein files. What was supposed to be a controlled, sanitized, as in bullshitted release, has turned into the biggest transparency disaster in FBI history. So here's what has happened. They're calling it, well, I don't know if they or him are calling it the middle school hack, but I love that name, the middle school hack. The FBI security was so porous that journalists realized they could access Volume 8 simply by changing a 7 to an 8 in the URL. I mean, my God, Trump's people are so fucking incompetent and worthless that you can bet if they ever released a file called, like, Proof of Trump's Innocence.pdf file, you could rename it to Proof of Trump's Guilt and probably get a horrifying image of Trump. And no, I don't just mean a close-up of his horrifying fucking face. In a display of total incompetence, the DOJ's redactions were reportedly copy-pastable by simply moving the blacked-out text into Notepad. Researchers have been able to read the names and details the government tried to hide. I mean, why do Hollywood movies bother showing hackers as being paying these like weird nerds who have like 4 keyboards and they're like brrr, inside a greased up basement. It's Notepad. Notepad is now the hacking tool you need to take down America. This is how much Trump has fucked the country. You can now expose state secrets using Notepad. That's their security. And so he mentions one of the other big leaks that happened with these unredacted stuff, the 10 co-conspirators. We now have proof that as early as 2019, the FBI identified 10 uncharged co-conspirators. These weren't just associates, they were part of what the unit called a violent crimes and human trafficking ring. Why hasn't the public seen these names? Descriptions point to billionaires, including a wealthy businessman in Ohio, suspected to be Les Wexner, and others in New York and Boston. Why hasn't the public seen the names of billionaires who did awful things? Surely rich people wouldn't be allowed to get away with horrible crimes in America. One of the most disturbing finds is a purported letter from Epstein to convicted creep Larry Nassar, which references Trump's alleged behavior, claiming he shared their love for young girls. Blech. It also sits alongside 1995 rape allegations that the DOJ has kept under wraps. Now, this is the best part of his whole tweet. The narrative here is clear. Selective release is being used as a political weapon. While the DOJ highlights names like Bill Clinton and went out of their way to put loads of pictures of him in the first release, they are reportedly redacting photos of current officials and their donors. Clinton has now called their bluff, demanding the release of everything unredacted. The bottom line, this isn't just about the crimes of one man, it's about a multi-decade protection racket for the global elite. The accidental nature of this leak proves that the institutions meant to protect us are more interested in protecting their own. Shocking. I'm so shocked. I think that's my biggest issue with conspiracy theories, really, is that the real conspiracy theories are ones that aren't interesting enough people to care about. Global elites running P-file rings, that seems kind of obvious, but not very interesting. What is interesting? What if they were running it out of a pizza shop? Ooh, global elites funneling all the money upwards so that everyone is left poor and they have all the cash. They're not very interesting. What if it was lizard people? Now, this guy makes a great point. Isn't it weird that this was supposed to be a display of transparency, but the only thing they've been transparent about is just how fucking stupid, incompetent, and corrupt they are, highlighting the names of their political competitors and hiding the names of people who actually committed serious crimes. Nothing to see here, people. What's shocking about the absolutely insane developments of this story isn't that something run by Trump is corrupt, incompetent, and deeply fucking stupid. Everything Trump runs is that way, and that includes his wrinkly orange bumhole of a mouth, which is a 79-year-old vintage. What's actually insane is that there's zero guarantee anything will come of this. It might happen in a few years, or maybe it probably will never happen. I wouldn't even say it's refreshing to see some Republican politicians calling for the removal of Mike Johnson as Speaker, or refreshing to see Republican politicians quitting en masse, because it's too little too late. Seriously, imagine if a Democrat politician was involved in this kind of scandal. They would have been impeached yesterday. Hardcore MAGA would have pulled off millions of years worth of mating and evolution in one night, just so they could develop the intelligence needed to make a time machine, go back in time, and remove that Democrat's entire bloodline from existence. No, it's a sign of just how much this country has fallen, just how many of the safeguards have been dismantled, that they can brazenly and openly carry out insane levels of corruption in a manner that is so incompetent it actually feels kind of insulting. I prefer my corrupt governments to pretend they care about my opinion. It reminds me of a famous line from James Cameron's 2009 masterpiece, Avatar. And no, I'm not kidding. Avatar is a masterpiece. Deal with it, film nerds.
You see, they're just pissing on us without even the courtesy of calling it rain.
So let's look at the other things that were unredacted using Notepad that weren't mentioned in that tweet. Check this out. So there's an exhibit in a civil case in the Virgin Islands against Darren K. Indike and Richard D. Kahn, who were 2 executors of Epstein's estate, which contains redacted allegations explaining how Epstein and his associates had facilitated the abuse of children. So basically says during that date, they paid $400,000 to young female models and actresses, including a former Russian model, who received over $380,000. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. So that same executor of Epstein's estate, Indike, an attorney who represented Epstein for decades, has not been criminally indicted by federal authorities, despite paying, underage girls. He was hired by the Palator Law Group in 2022, before the Justice Department settled the Epstein case. That firm represents the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, and previously represented Donald Trump in his defense against charges stemming from the discovery of classified government documents in a toilet. I'm pretty sure that was the story. And this is a really bizarre, I don't know if bizarre is the right word, corrupt redaction that they try to do. Redactions of sections 184 through 192 of the document describe property taxes paid by companies incorporated by Epstein on properties that were not on the balance sheet for those firms. So, there's an example here. Cyprus reported as its only asset cash in the amounts of $29,736, expense of $150, despite actually paying $55,000 and $113,000 in property taxes during that year. Why is Trump's DOJ covering covering up tax fraud for sex criminals and human traffickers. Why? Anyway, like I said, this is a breaking story. It's very possible that some stuff even crazy could come out. I'm covering what's out there right now, but like I promised, let's end it on a slightly cheery note and look at some of the funnier reactions on the internet to this whole mess. There's this delicious, Simpsons meme. Just Bill Clinton in the middle there, like, hey. If that's what he sounds like, no idea. Yeah, I love the irony of this. Somebody posted an Onion article. CIA realizes it's been using black highlighters all these years, but the irony is, you know, if they actually had released the Epstein files physically or as scans and they'd used a black highlighter to cover it up, they would have actually have done a better job of redacting it than they did. Like an Onion joke, an Onion abstract joke portrays a more competent version of government than we currently have, which is terrifying. There's this wonderful Cyanide and Happiness comic. I love that on a naughty list. It just says the Grinch, everyone else is blacked out, which begs the question, does the Grinch play saxophone? I mean, some of these memes are just evergreen, as the Scooby-Doo Trump meme. Sometimes simple sentiments are the best. This person asked, how can anyone be this incompetent with 1,000 likes? And it's like, have you been paying attention? Like, Trump can't even do the English language properly. I like this one. Going to tell my kids this was the Epstein client list. I mean, realistically, the fact that, you know, that both parties have probably had access to this list in some form for a while, and also the fact that it sounds like 10 of the nation's, you know, top billionaires were involved in it, means, of course, you know, this thing is filthy. It goes deep into government. Call me crazy, but I'm of the mindset that, you know, anyone who is involved in this shit can go to jail. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. Straight to jail. And this meme, you know, it's an old one, but a good one. I mean, it's nice to see a meme, you know, repurposed in a way that makes it totally fresh. Anyway, that's enough brain rot. Thank you for watching. If you want to see more frothy takes on a terribly depressing time to be alive, make sure you subscribe. I'm British Chris, and this is Raw America.